How's it going? I will be doing a presentation on vitamin B12, so buckle up. So vitamin B12, this is something that I've seen in a lot of different places, but never really bothered to research. I'm actually excited to be able to sit down and research this. Um, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen it, whether, I know for me, I see it anytime I buy my kids cereal, or if I am buying an energy drink for late nights of studying. And I've always seen it, but never really knew much about it. So without further ado, let's dive right into what vitamin B12 is. So vitamin B12 is a water-soluble vitamin. Means that it stays in our body until we excrete it. One of the other names for vitamin B12, just because that's a mouthful, is cobalamin. Vitamin B12 plays a key role in our brain function and nervous system functioning as well. Now that's really important to know, just because as we go through this, it'll kind of make some of the problems with deficiencies a little more understanding. Vitamin B12 is also important for proper red blood cell formation and DNA synthesis. This does this through its use with amino acids. It is one of 8 B vitamins, which other B vitamins include things like folate. So in healthy individuals, those that are have adequate amounts of vitamin B12 in their diet already, if you take in an intake of vitamin B12, as the example shows here on the screen, of say 500 micrograms of vitamin B12, only about 10 micrograms actually gets absorbed into your body. And we'll go more into detail on that as we move forward. How much do we need? So luckily for males and females, the amount is the exact same with with minor exceptions. So as we see here, from 0 to 6 months, we need 0.4 micrograms, 7 to 12, 0.5, 1 to 3 years, 0.9, 4 to 8 years, 1.2 micrograms, 9 to 13 years, 1.8 micrograms, and 14 on is 2.4. Now, like I said, there are some variances in the amount needed, and that is for those that are pregnant or lactating or breastfeeding. If you're pregnant, you need a little bit more, just 0.2 micrograms more than you would typically need. However, if you're breastfeeding, you need 2.8 micrograms, so another 0.4 micrograms added into your diet. Now that's pretty easy to intake, just because of the types of diets that we as humans generally take in. So one interesting note is that there is no upper limit for vitamin B12. What this means is you can essentially take in as much as you'd like without any negative effects on your body, and we'll get more into that. So how can you get it into your diet? As the pictures kind of show and as the slide shows as well, vitamin B12 can be found naturally in clams, trout, salmon, and liver. I'm not a big fan of liver, but to each their own. It can be found in vitamin B12 fortified foods, so like I said, cereals, some milks, things like that. Soy-based products are fortified with vitamin B12 as well. Brand cereals, red meat, which I know there is some controversy about how much we should take of red meats, but it does have benefits in that it can get us vitamin B12 that we need on a daily basis. Dietary or dairy products like milk and cheese, you can get it from just your standard vitamin B12 supplements and energy drinks, but those aren't necessarily recommended to be as part of your regular diet. So people that actually need to watch out. So there are some people that are at risk of becoming deficient in these things. And that's rather unfortunate. Mainly it's just due to the diet that is placed on people with these conditions. These include celiac disease, Crohn's disease, those that have been diagnosed with HIV. Now, this one I found interesting, those that are taking medication for seizures. So vitamin B12 helps with brain and nervous system functionality. And so by taking vitamin B12, it can actually have some negative effects on the medication that is taken for seizures. And so just something to be aware of if you do have to take these medications. Just consult your doctor before you just start taking handfuls of vitamin B12. Vegans, mainly just because the major sources of vitamin B12 are things like liver and trout, things typically avoided in a vegan diet. Lastly, those that drink alcohol just need to make sure that their vitamin B12 levels are adequate. So wait, I need vitamin B12? Yes, everyone needs vitamin B12. If you don't, vitamin B12 deficiencies lead to something called pernicious anemia, which the signs and symptoms are directly correlated to what benefits vitamin B12 have, and that the lack of vitamin B12 is fatigue, poor balance, memory loss, numbness, and tingling of hands and feet. Now, remember, vitamin B12 is used for proper brain and nervous system function. And so if you are lacking in vitamin B12, you'll have misfirings, which will cause tinglings of hands and feet. Your brain won't get the blood supply that it needs, and it won't be able to send the signals properly, which can lead to memory loss and poor balance, and then just general fatigue and numbness as well. It's, again, numbness due to the lack of firing in the nervous system. One thing with vitamin B12 deficiencies is while it is generally difficult for you to become deficient, when you do become deficient, it can take up to a year to 2 years to come out of that deficiency. Again, because our bodies only intake about 2% of the vitamin B12 that we take into our bodies, this can be a long, arduous process. So hold on, how much can I have? So due to the fact that vitamin B12 is water soluble, you can actually have as much as your heart desires. I mean, might be weird after a while, but you can have as much vitamin B12 because it is impossible to overdose on it. And that is because for however much our body doesn't need, it just becomes excreted out via our urine. So that's why you can see places, or if you look into things like trout or liver, which are almost 1,000 times more than your daily value needed for vitamin B12, you don't necessarily have to worry about those things just because of the fact that vitamin B12 is going to be excreted out of your body without causing you any particular harm. So again, what is it good for? So vitamin B12 is a nutrient that keeps your body's nerve and blood cells healthy. This is just kind of a recap. And it also helps make DNA, which is the genetic material of all cells. And then it also helps prevent a type of anemia. Again, going back to the slide where we saw earlier in regards to what happens with pernicious anemia, vitamin B12 also prevents megablastic anemia, which again makes people tired and weak, again due to the brain and nervous system functionality. So I want the truth. Famous line by Tom Cruise there and A Few Good Men. The claim that a lot of people have made, especially in the uprising of energy drinks, is that vitamin B12 gives you energy. You'll see in stores where you'll see lines upon lines of energy drinks boasting that they are vitamin B12 packed. Truth of the matter is, according to the National Heart, Lung, Blood Institute in 2008, only those with a vitamin B12 deficiency will experience an increase in energy, concentration, mood, and memory. And so that's just something to be aware of. And now, again, going back to becoming deficient, a vitamin B12 deficiency can actually be really hard, mainly because our bodies hold on to so much as is. So in the research, I was able to find that the human body naturally will hold on to 2,500 milligrams or micrograms at any given time. And so the fact of the matter is, it's not necessarily the vitamin B12 that's giving you the energy, it's the caffeine and the sugars that they add to those energy drinks. Honestly, again, going back to certain parts of the I'm doing sorry about that. So truly the most surprising part of the research is that, again, we can just essentially just input so much vitamin B12 into our bodies without having to worry about having it have a negative effect on us. So this is a reference page. These are a couple really good sites that I was able to find if you want more information about vitamin B12. My personal favorites are the top two. Mayo Clinic has always been good. And then, of course, any government site where everything has to be regulated is also good. So, enjoy.